I get asked this question a lot, and I'm not absolutely sure where it comes from, but a lot of people ask me, does every photograph have to tell a story? Well, at the risk of sounding overly simplistic, no, absolutely not. I think there are many legitimate ways for you to use your camera to create images which are visually arresting, but not necessarily narratively compelling. And I think Maarten Rots, who I'm going to feature in today's film, is a great example of this. No people in his images, no context really, just shape and color and light and shadow. It's pure aesthetics. He's using the camera like an artist or even like a designer, walking around and finding those little corners of everyday life with interesting compositions, using shapes and textures which make us want to linger a little bit longer when looking at his images. Maarten and I actually have a lot in common. We both started out in street photography and both quickly felt uncomfortable with the sometimes confrontational nature of taking photographs of people on the street. So our work became more abstract, less about people, more about light and shape and shadow. It's just that Maarten, with his art school and design background, took it way further than I have, and the results are stunning. Maarten's work reminds me to pay closer attention to my world when I walk around every day, because in his images, in his wandering around, he will find at the end of some quiet, dirty alleyway a scene that's lit so beautifully and so colorfully that he will be able to take a photograph and print it big and put it on the wall in a gallery. He shows us that there are little pieces of art to be found in very unexpected places if we know how to look for them. So because I have no doubt you will find his story inspiring and it will get you thinking differently about your own photography, I recently flew to Portugal to catch up with Maarten and his wife and their little dog Laika to talk to him about how he shoots the photography that he does, the little pop-up exhibitions he's doing, and the fact that he travels around 6 months out of every year now in a van to go to different cities and towns to chase the light and the compositions that make the beautiful work that he does possible. So I'm going to shut up now and introduce you to my friend Maarten Rots.
So what do I say that I do? That's a good one. Yeah, I tell them it's quite abstract what I do, but it's all found in reality. So I use reality to create. So I'm not just capturing. I really feel like I'm creating when I take my photographs. And that's something I thought about it a lot lately. So why do I do this? Why do I do it this way? Why am I not setting up something in a studio, for example, and get similar results? Because it's possible. So I think the first thing I really like about it is just that there's a lot of chance involved. I don't know where I'm going. I'm really walking around like, sometimes I'm walking in circles without noticing because I'm just following the interesting elements. Sometimes I'm going in a straight line because the light is in the right angle all the time. Because it's usually buildings or other architectural urban elements that I use in my photographs. So I don't know what I'm going to bump into. So sometimes it's really a good area. Sometimes it's like, okay, maybe I have to make a turn and hopefully find something good. But then at some point, something happens. I see something, a little glimpse of light or a nice shadow, or maybe in the distance I see a building that might be interesting. Or like I see some element that might lead to an interesting composition. When I was starting art school, I was much more interested in recognizable art, so to say, the narrative portraits or landscapes, and that's bad examples, but things that you can easily understand what you're looking at first glance. And abstract art, especially abstract expressionism, is like, that was really beyond me. It was really hard to understand what was going on. It's not like I understand it now, but I really have an interest now, and I like to dive into it and figure things out. But there's a lot of abstraction around us already. There's so many things in just because how the light works and how we build things and how nature reacts to things that will distort our reality, even though that's still the same reality, but you experience it in a different way without taking drugs or anything. It's just, that's the way it is. It's out there. And I really find that interesting that you can find abstraction in your everyday surroundings without going through it, jumping through hoops, and just, it's there. It's a bit like looking through a funnel. And you can look through a funnel from two sides, like you can look like this and see, like notice a lot. If I do that, I see a lot, but nothing really stands out. Or you can look at it from the other side and you really only see the little thing. And I think that's what I've started doing more and more and more. So a lot of things happen around me while I'm walking around with my camera. But I probably don't, well, I can say I don't notice it, I don't know, of course, but yeah, people can fall off their bike next to me and I might hear it, but it'd be like so focused that I just don't notice it. This is also, I'm now describing the ultimate moment, of course, when I'm really, you know this, everybody who's in a creative outlet knows the feeling of being like super focused, and like it's almost like sounds are a bit more like you're under a pillow or something, and yeah, you start to really only focus on such a small thing. I'm training also myself to become, to get into this zone. I think it's the zone, right? The zone. Sounds like, woo. It's focus. And why? Yeah, again, it's, because I'm doing it right now also, I see this little corner, it's like, oh, that's such a nice little corner there. And it's nothing important, but every time I'm looking there, it's like, oh yeah, because it's I can't stop it, and sometimes it's really annoying because I don't always have my camera with me, and it's also good not to have your camera with you all the time. I think it's actually very healthy not to always carry it with you, but sometimes I'm like, oh, I really wish I had a camera now. I really like it when I have a photograph and I can look at it later, but it's not necessarily about that. It's also about the moment, just being there and enjoying it and experiencing it and just letting it come, and try not to be, even though I find it hard sometimes, but I try to just let it happen and be comfortable with the fact that I'm not gonna photograph it. It's okay. It's 150 years ago nobody could ever do that. We had to go home and draw it or sketch it out, and yeah, maybe we've lost that a little bit with photography, just enjoying the moment, but I'm trying to still have it, even though I'm spending a lot of time taking photographs, and yeah. So yeah, we started traveling a couple of years ago, and we just gradually grew into doing it more and more, and now it's around 6 to 8 months a year that we live in the van. So yeah, here it is, our home. So yeah, we built this one ourselves, so we could really make it the way we would like it to be. So it's, as you can see, I can stand here exactly, and my wife's a little bit shorter than me, so it's perfect fit. And yeah, we made it so that we can change it into a bedroom quite quickly, and also make a workspace here. So well, it may seem like a very small bed, but we can just pull out a part over here and just well, like this, and then take this part of the mattress, add that here. And then we have a semi-full-size bed, which is perfect length, again, just for us. So we have some cupboards with our clothes here. Here's a lot of the dry food that we can use, and there's herbs and spices here. There's more crap behind this. I'm not gonna open it. And then a nice little kitchen with an enormous fridge, which is full of stuff as well. It's always nice to be prepared to stick around a bit longer than you planned, even though there's supermarkets everywhere. So if you really need something, you can get it. We have such a high bed because we use the bag to pack our, well, not just my art. I mean, there's frames in there when we do the tour with the exhibition stuff, but there's also some boxes with extra clothes. Yeah, so normally this thing is completely crammed, like really nothing else can fit in anymore, because we have, well, frames in the back, frames on this side, and then all the rest goes around it. So this is toolbox with all the stuff that I need to set up the exhibition, and then these boxes are some food and some nice clothing that has to stay nice for when there's an opening. Like now I'm wearing my not so fancy clothes, and there's some nice stuff in there that has to stay nice, so it's in the back, it cannot be hurt. And yeah, I have a good screen with me just in case, calibrated screen. You can't see it now, but in the behind here there's the gas tank for cooking, and then there's some chairs here, and on the other side and there's a water tank as well there, and on this side there's a big battery to keep the power running. Pretty much it. And we have two nice cameras here, so I didn't just bring my camera, but I also have two nice cameras here for rear view, and also one is pointed down, so when I'm backing up it automatically goes down. I can see if I'm gonna bump into something or someone, and I can decide to stop or not. I can also turn this into a workspace quite nicely, not quite, well, pretty quick. So I can, it's a really nice feature. We have a swivel for this double seat, which turns it into a much larger space quite easily, and also makes it possible to install a little table. Of course there's crap in my way here now. It's always the case. There we go. So yeah, I can sit here to do my work on my laptop. I can put a table leg, which is up here in this little metal thing here, put this tabletop on it, and I have like a desk to work on, which is really nice. We can also use it just at night when we have some snacks, or to play a game, a board game or whatever. For us it feels like it's a big van, because we were used to having a smaller one. We had a Volkswagen T4 which had a pop top, so we could only open it when it was good weather. In the summer it's no problem, but in the winter time or in autumn when it's raining, it's not nice to have it up. So now we can always stand in here, which just makes it easy to move around, and that's super nice. And also we insulated it really well. You can still see a little bit of the insulation here, and that really helps in the winter. It doesn't get, well, it gets almost as cold as it does back home in Amsterdam when we don't have the heating on. It's like 16 degrees even when it's freezing outside, so it's really good actually. And if it's really bad, we have a heater here, so we can warm it up, but that's after 15 minutes that it's been running, that's plenty, so you don't use it a lot actually. What I'm really happy with that we have is this little fan here. I mean, you could have a roof window and that you could open and have just ventilating, but the nice thing is this one is rotating with a fan, which can blow air in or suck it out. And so when I'm cooking, we usually have it to suck out, and when it's really hot and it's cooling down at night, it's nice to let it blow the cool air in. So that's a nice extra feature that I'm super happy with. We have a Credo here, and it's just a fun thing to hang it up actually. But we just bumped into an incomplete Scrabble set, and we had the letters, and we said, okay, what can we do with it? And for years we've been saying "Wie bepaalt dat," which roughly translates to who decides that, who says so, says who, something like that. And I think it really says something about the way we try to approach life. Like, okay, if the answer isn't us, or lately Laika, our dog, then I'm not sure we should do it. So that's pretty much how we try to approach most things. Like, if we can decide, like, you cannot decide on everything yourself, but all the things that you do have a say in, we always try to say that, like, wie bepaalt dat? Who says so? Yeah, the best is just the freedom, and I mean, you can really decide to park your van at a really nice spot and wake up with the sunset in your window the next morning, and have your coffee and meet new people, and like all these things that are kind of cliche. They are, well, that's with every cliche, it's true. But it's just the opposite is just as true. Like you park at a really shitty spot and it's raining for weeks, and you only have a limited amount of clothes. You cannot dry any clothes because it's raining. So you have to, and you're not gonna get a proper hot shower every day for sure, never. So you have to get used to those kinds of things. So you exchange some comfort for freedom, and I think that's you have to balance that out. I really like it when something's new. But it doesn't have to be a tropical island or anything. Just, it's still, I'm traveling from the Netherlands now, we're in Portugal. It's still quite a distance, but the light is completely different, the textures around me are completely different, the architecture is different, the people are different, the mindset is different, everything's different, and I change as well through that, and I really like that. And it gives me a new way of looking. We've started traveling 5 years ago, and really intensively the last 2-3 years it's been really taking a lot of our time, and I really enjoy that. I really want to keep that doing. So what we are doing now is, next to just traveling, having these pop-up exhibitions right here now in Setubal, in Lapso Gallery. I'm super happy to have the possibility to do this here, and next week I'm going to move the show, and we're going to go to Porto, and it keeps going. When we are not exhibiting, the whole van is filled with all the frames in the back. At least we still live in the van, but they're in the back. We cannot buy anything that has to go home. Only food can be bought, and drinks, and that's it. And we just take them with us, and that's something I really enjoy. It's a different way of traveling, because we have to stay around for a longer time and be at certain places. So I cannot always chase the weather. I just have to apply to where I am, and okay, let's see how we can deal with this. I always try to reflect a lot. We do that together, actually. We reflect a lot about everything, not just my photography, but the way we travel and the way we can make a living while we travel. And we've got a dog now, which is also added something, like we have to figure out how to deal with it. It's great to have a dog, but it also changes the way you can plan things. But it's given me a lot of new ways of thinking about doing this. And even though it's very small now, I think it's a good starting point of finding ways to combine traveling and showing my work. I choose to go to the places where the weather is nice, and not because I want to be in nice weather, but because they provide me with the elements to photograph. It may seem like a kind of tropical escapism to people sometimes, like, wow, you're just going away from the stupid hard winters but just annoying winters that we have, and you have fun in a warm country. And yeah, to a certain extent it is, but most of the photographs that I take of that eventually end up maybe in my magazines or as a print on the wall in an exhibition are not taken in a touristy place or in a big city. Well, big city maybe, but usually I don't tend to go to the obvious spots. Not because I don't find the obvious spots interesting, but just because I think really you find it everywhere. And it's not nice to say, but it's often that it's a smelly spot where I took a very nice photograph. And I actually really like this clash. There is this, it always lives next to each other, and I really like that. Sometimes I end up in very dodgy areas, like, oh, I'm not sure if I should have taken this turn, but here we are, and I actually find a very nice situation. What I do is really boring. I photograph walls, what the hell? It's really boring, right? But you can still turn it around and show there is some kind of, it's not just a wall. The wall gets influenced by the weather, by the sun, by the shadow. The wall may be static, but there is a lot of life to it. And I think that's with everything. And maybe find things that have these kinds of qualities, that have gone through ages of being at that same place. And just doing it, going out and doing it, believing there will be something different. I think that's also key, just because I often have it that I am not in the right mode, in the right mood, I feel a bit lazy or tired, I had bad night's sleep or whatever, hungry, thirsty, and I forgot my wallet, can't get anything anywhere, just keep going. And then still believing, okay, I know if I keep going, at some point there will be something, and it's almost always I get rewarded. And it's not that it's something that's like the ultimate reveal, like, wow, this is what you've been going for, but if If you search, you will find, but often you find something different than you were looking for. But it's nice. You never know what it is you're going to bump into. Yeah, the coincidence is a very important part, I think, of working with photography on the street. What is really nice about Instagram, I think, is that you can share and people can see it and can come and you have this interaction, but it also is quite flimsy. It's just you scroll through your feed and you see a nice sunset, then you see my photograph, then you see a puppy, then you see a meal, you see all these different things. So there's a really different context. So I felt need to have a coherence, like find the photographs that belong together, that are the same research or the same theme, but not necessarily a series. Also something that lives for longer, so not like 1 second on your phone and you go to the next one. Even though sometimes you take time longer with the photograph, but often it's like you go so fast. Also on a computer screen it's like that, and then there's no control over the colors, over the size, over the feel, the texture of the materials. With my graphic design background, I felt like, okay, it would be nice if I could make a book. But to fill a book with proper content and really getting to make it sharp and pointy and good enough, you have to have quite a lot of images, at least, or you don't call it a book. So I felt maybe a magazine is a good in-between way of dealing with that. And it's turned out to be a really nice way to work. The first one I did was still a bit of a tryout, I think, although it took a long time to get to the final results. So I made in between prints and looking at it and showing it to other people, get feedback, and especially with my wife, we discussed it a lot and tried to sell them. Immediately went into Amsterdam and found a few shops that would actually put them in the store and sell them like on consignment. So that was a nice compliment, actually. It was like, oh, apparently it is already at a level that they are not ashamed to have it in their store. And I had some people who asked me, can I subscribe? Because I know, but I immediately said, okay, this is issue number 1. Because of course I wanted to continue, even though I wasn't sure yet, I wanted to. And yeah, of course, if people asked me to subscribe, I felt that's a good idea, why not? So I had to make, I said, okay, it's going to be quarterly, so I have to make at least 3 more now. But then with issue 2, someone else subscribes, so I have to make issue 5 as well. So it's continuing. But already with the second issue, it felt like this is such a good way of working. And what I really like about the fact that it's a magazine, it's gonna hopefully stay around for a longer time. People keep them. I number them, so they become kind of unique, like they're a limited edition. One thing I think is a very good way to go about it, and so, because it works really well for me, is just make really small, cheap prints. Just go to a print shop, have A4 prints with like 4 or even more photographs on it, and just cut them up. So you have small ones, and you can play with them. And you can just change the order wherever you are. You can even turn them upside down, which is something I did for a while. I have one magazine that is based on that, actually. It has 2 front sides, so you can rotate it. But that's nice, so you can play with your photographs. So it's not, so once they're on your computer, they're on your computer. But if you take them off the screen, you have them small in a print, they become something else. You can play with them. You can also hang them on the wall. You can maybe have like 3 next to each other, like you have triptych or maybe a diptych. You could even do it at home if you have a good printer, but just, they don't have to be super good prints. It's more about having a representation of the photograph than have an actual really good print. But the first one, I made a lot of proof prints just in the print shop also. I just folded the A4s so I could go through them. Eventually I had them printed at a professional printer. But you can easily do it yourself. I mean, the colors may be a bit off because most print shops are a bit lazy with the calibration of their printers, I've noticed. That's fine for now. I'm gonna start, because it's better to just start and get something going instead of waiting for the perfect moment, because then you're gonna keep waiting forever. But now you can show it to someone because it's analog, and you can share it. You can give it to someone. Someone can take it with them. It's become a thing instead of just pixels. What's a pixel? It's nothing. So it's actually literally getting weight. It's like there's some weight to it now. So yeah, printing, I would really keep it simple in the beginning. Just do it for yourself. That's the first time I made a magazine. I did it for me because I wanted to. I think what you're looking at when you see my photographs are just a result of my fascination. I'm not trying to tell a story by going like, oh, look at these walls, what they've been through, what the walls have seen. That's not where I'm going with this. It's really just, I'm fascinated, and it's weird obsession, I think. I can't help it, I have to do it, and I want to do it. And then I decided to show the results, and they happen to be photographs. They could have been silkscreen prints maybe, or abstract paintings, and who knows, maybe one day I will go in that direction. But I am very interested in actually finding situations where I can take photographs that have a similar aesthetic. Not every photographer is taking photographs with the intention of telling a story. And even if you have a photograph that has a super clear narrative, take 20 people, give them no context, and let them tell what the story is, you have 20 completely different stories. So I think the story is more in the mind of the person who's viewing the photograph instead of what the photographer is trying to tell. Even though he can do his best to really tell a very clear story, it comes down to what they make of it, and you can steer it for sure. I prefer it actually if it's more open. That's a personal preference, and that might be one of the reasons that I take the kind of photographs that I do right now. I mean, people disappear out of my photographs, but there's still a human element in my photographs, I think. It's often textured walls. Well, these textures were made by hand. Sometimes you can really see how they were made. Sometimes there is a scratch of something that has touched the wall. Those are very small things, but they also tell a story, but it's a very, very open story. Maybe it has to do with part of my upbringing was in church and having a certain view pushed, not necessarily by my parents, but more by the system. And I've completely gone away from that. And now I like it actually when you can make your own choices, your own ideas. I mean, there's mathematics and there's gravity and these things. Totally, of course, that's science. Nice. But outside of that, experience or why things happen the way they happen, that's such a personal thing in the end. You can reason back and figure out why certain things happen, but there's always so many sides to it. So I like it when people have possibility to fill that in for themselves.
Is there anything you want to add?
I love my wife. No, I love that we do this together. I'm really happy how we are a team. Of course, the focus is a bit on what I do because I'm now, especially with the exhibitions added, but we really do this together, and it's not. I could never do this alone. No way that I could do this alone. And I think that's an interesting thing. Like often when you see art in a museum or in a magazine or in a book, you think about what the artist does, and I think often there is someone else involved that doesn't get any of the visible credits, at least. And I think we really do this as a team, and I could never do this without Anna. That's for sure. In the end, I hope I can keep doing this. That's, I think, the most important for me. And I can get by. It's not a luxurious life, but that's all. But I don't mind luxury. I like just enough's enough, and enough is not a lot. I'm happy with keeping it simple. It's nice actually. When you keep it simple, you can focus more. I believe that. Maybe in my photographs it's also like that. It's quite simple subject, but because it's so simple, I can really focus on what makes the simple interesting, special. Yeah, turning the simple into the spectacular. It's not spectacular. Maybe it is. For me it is. For me it is, absolutely. Yeah.